my spoiler-free review for Your Name by Makoto Shinkai. This is a manga series that was released kind of in conjunction with of the movie by the same name. It is a YA light fantasy romance, which doesn't typically pull me in, but the magical element / sci-fi element is like so minimal that it really only impacts one part of the story. And I did the rookie reader move of watching the movie first, although I watched it first because my husband and one of his best friends, who the three of us watch anime every 2 weeks together, this is one of their favorite anime movies, and they really wanted to share it with me. And so I watched it with them because I trust their taste, and then I immediately just tried to find a way to share it with you guys because it was a beautiful story. So the gist of said story is that you follow Mitsuha and Taki. Respectively, they are a girl who lives in rural Japan versus a boy who lives in Tokyo. You both follow them. They're kind of like seniors in high school. And it's a beautiful story that really touches on love and expectations both for yourself, for your life, and from others. And a little bit of magic just to spice things up. So with that, I'll move into my likes and dislikes. One thing that I really liked was how unique the character voices were. Because part of the story includes body swapping, I found that really important and then reading, even if you weren't given much context, just being able to read their voice tells you who is in whose body. And I found that really, really quite enjoyable because then I wasn't just relying on the author to tell me. There were cues I could pick up on. The second is that I just love the story in general. It was just very cute, very sweet. It was a mix of heartwarming and heart-wrenching. It really did a lot for me, and I read it just at the right time. It really just hit the spot. The third is the ending. This is very related to the second but for the kind of story it was, you kind of knew what was going to happen at the end, but the author just did a very good job wrapping everything up. I personally just like really tidy endings, even if it's sad. It doesn't matter if it's sad or happy, I just very much enjoy tidy endings, and this book delivered on that for me. Given, I like tidy endings in this kind of story. I do have a few dislikes, though. The first one, and the most major one, being that the dialogue was pretty cringy in the first volume. A lot of this is just, they're still fleshing out the characters a little bit, so the dialogue doesn't have a lot of the character's voice in it. It's just, generic teenage dialogue, and I know I talked like that when I was that age, but 28-year-old me was a little ooh. My second dislike is some of the side characters didn't get enough love. And although I know I complain about it a lot, and they're side characters, they don't need a lot of love. You're following the protagonists. It's just, there's a few that I would have loved to get a little bit more even through the eyes of the protagonist. And then my third and final negative here is the pacing. Again, the first volume was kind of the biggest contributor to this. It was just, you got a really nice cold open with the first volume, and then it slowed right down. Part of that is because they were just giving you information about the setting and the story and the characters, but it slowed right down. But when you got to the second and third volumes, it did pick up quite a bit in terms of pace, and it stayed consistent through to the end. And it just built beautifully with the story. And now I'll move on to the characters. I don't really have a lot because if I talk about the characters too much, I'm going to be giving a lot away. But as I mentioned kind of before, I really liked how unique Mitsuha and Taki's voices were. They had a very similar energy in terms of their long-term goals, I guess, and what they wanted out of life. But it was done through different voices, and those voices were unique enough that you were able to pick up on cues from their body language and their dialogue as to when they had switched bodies without the author having to tell you, which was really nice. I also really enjoyed their friend circles, both Taki's and Mitsuha's. I would have loved more time with them, but they were really solid friends, and I really appreciated that. Then you go look at the families. This is kind of where I wish we'd gone a little bit more time with them, like, given their family situations. You do get a little bit of background, but it always would have been nice to get a little bit more, because you know that it had a big impact on them as kids and growing up. And while all the characters were a little bit stereotyped, none of them felt particularly flat, which I really appreciated. They were all pretty fun and realistic and relatable, even though they fit into the stereotypes, and really commend the author for doing that, because it made the characters and the entire story a lot more enjoyable, especially when you had to wade through some pretty cringy dialogue at the beginning. And that's really all I'm going to say here. I really don't want to say too much, because like I said, if I talk about the characters, if I talk about this in general too long, I'm going to give too much away. And I want you guys to read it. It was awesome. And so, my average rating for the 3 volumes were 4.5 out of 5. I did all 3 because they're the entire movie, and I'm going to review the movie, and I don't want to review just the first volume. So the first volume for me was 4 out of 5 stars, the second volume was 4.5 out of 5 stars, and the third volume was 5 out of 5. And with the last one being a 5 out of 5, it was mostly the ending for me, and I know not everybody's gonna love that ending, but I did. There was like I mentioned when I was talking about my likes and dislikes, there was very little that I actually disliked in this book, in this series, I guess I should say. It was sweet and cute and wholesome, and it delivered a heartwarming and heart-wrenching story, and I read it at the right time because it just felt perfect, and the story just hit home and gave me all the warm fuzzies. It's just a cute, like, romance with some very, like, just a sprinkle of fantasy or sci-fi in it, and there's so much more I want to say, but I'm not going to say it here. I'll save it for my spoiler review, which will be done right after I press stop on this camera. And with that, I will leave you here just recommending this book series because it was quick and sweet and lovely. Peace.